The 1.6 hybrid Kia Niro combines bold styling with a roomy interior and one of the best infotainment systems in its class. Priced from £28,245, the Niro offers great value for money, and the 451-litre boot only adds to what's one of the most practical and versatile cars on the market today. Let's take a closer look.
When it comes to the main cabin in this car, it's a really lovely place to be. You've got a nice big bright colourful infotainment screen here and a really crystal clear driver information display. In this particular model we've also got a head-up display. I have seen better, but it's perfectly good. The gear selector is now quite familiar in automatic Kias. It's this little kind of round dial affair. You've got that in the EV6 and the Kia Soul EV and plenty of others. Controls in this one for heated seats, cooled seats, heated steering wheel, parking cameras. We've also got a wireless charging pad, USB-A connection and a USB-C connection. In the centre console we've also got two adjustable cup holders, a little bit of space to put a couple of bits and bobs, and a very small little compartment there. Glove box is a reasonable size, as are the door bins. You've got very good quality materials in all the places that you're going to come into contact with on a regular basis. Not quite so good once you get down to sort of the door bins, that area, but even though they are a bit harder and scratchier, they feel a lot better than in many of this car's rivals. So you do have two physical dials for the air conditioning system and then lots of haptics. What I can say is those haptics work brilliantly well, far better than in most cars that I've been in with haptic controls. And at the touch of one button, those air conditioning controls now become volume and power for your stereo, tuner for your radio, and the haptics become sort of infotainment controls. To be fair, it's a great solution for not having the place completely cluttered with buttons or haptics, but still having plenty of controls without having to dive into the infotainment screen. Nice big steering wheel wrapped in very good quality leather, perhaps not my favourite design. Nice quality thumb controls for your infotainment system. Everything's where you'd expect it to be. We've also got flappy paddles on this one for the regenerative braking. Only two drive modes in this, those being Eco and Sport. When you go from Eco to Sport, the gearbox will basically hold the gears slightly longer to allow you to rev the engine a bit more and get a tiny bit more performance, and the dials change from blue to red. That's about the crux of it. Kia claim a combined MPG of 60.1. I have to say, in the real world, I've done 311 miles in this car this week, and I've averaged 55.4 MPG, which, although is 5 off the claimed combined rate, I think is highly impressive. I've done more of those miles on sort of A roads and B roads than I have on motorways. In the back there's plenty of legroom and headroom for anything other than a Harlem Globetrotter, and in the side of the passenger seats you've got very, very handy little USB sockets to keep the kids in the back entertained. But really that middle seat in the back is only a half seat, so it's best suited to two adults and a child. So I'm going to start this one off by telling you the things that I don't like about this car, and there are just a few. Firstly, when you're driving around town, the car's nice and quiet and refined, but when you get out onto the open road or you accelerate hard, there's more engine noise than I would expect, and it's quite a gruff, it's not a great sounding engine, and it just takes away a tiny bit from the refinement of the drive, in my opinion. Although it's got Android Auto and Apple CarPlay as standard, they're only wired and not wireless. On a modern car, I sort of expect them to be wireless now, and also you've got that wireless charging pad down there, and you don't use it a great deal if you plug your phone in every time you get in the car. Another one's the suspension. It's a very, very minor gripe, this one, but you just feel a few more of the bumps than you would probably expect in this kind of car. And then finally, the seats, they're very comfortable, but you don't have a great deal of side support. So if you go around a corner in a bit of a lively fashion, you are going to slide around on the seat a little bit more than I would like. Just a little bit more sort of bolster support would help. But on the seats, very comfortable, very nicely trimmed. Now for the happier side of things, the car's a joy to live with. It's just so easy to live with. The steering is so unbelievably light and nimble. yet very compliant. You know, you still feel like you can feel the road with this. Some cars feel a bit distant these days in terms of steering. This one doesn't, despite the fact it's really light. The throttle is really responsive. It's only got 10.8 0 to 62, which I mentioned earlier, which I'm really massively surprised by, but it feels quicker than that. It feels really responsive, and really in terms of the car's size, it's just ideal. It's not too big for normal car parking spaces, but it's got a ton of room inside. You know, your passengers are going to be happy. You've got 451 litres of boot space, which means you can go and do a weekly family shop and still have plenty of spare room in your boot. And it's not going to cost you the earth to run the thing. And although there's nothing about this that's particularly spectacular, it's a great package and it's a great all-round car, and I can see why it's won so many awards. I think Car Buyer recently gave it as Car of the Year. Now this one is a 4 spec, which is right up there in terms of Kia spec, and of course it's got the full hybrid system. It's not a plug-in, but it's got a full hybrid system. So this one's about 33.5 grand on the road. I would suggest the sweet spot in Kia is sort of a 2 or 3 level trim spec, and if you can live without things like an electric opening boot and a small sunroof, then you could save yourself a good few quid. So when I was talking about the interior of the car, something I forgot to tell you about, foolishly, was the fact that the centre console in this car is actually very low. Normally, they kind of sit around about the same height as my knee, and this one sits below my knee. That's not a huge distance, you know, we're probably talking like this, but what that does is give you a much more sort of airy feel in the front of the cabin, and it really feels massively spacious right up front here. Much more so than even in quite a lot of larger cars. I think sometimes now people get a bit carried away by saying, oh, I only want an SUV or I only want a crossover or something like that. Really, the lines are very blurred these days. Trying to say whether a car's a hatchback or a crossover or an SUV sometimes is more difficult than trying to explain what kind of music Frank Zappa played. As I said, this car is not spectacular in any way. It's very good in almost every way. You've got that 7-year, 100,000 mile Kia warranty. This car is going to be like that person that reliably turns up for work every day for 30 years, never calls in sick, never lets you down, and just plods on and gets on with the job at hand. This is a great car that's going to serve people extremely well for a number of years, I have no doubt. And it's a car that really doesn't have too many compromises. If you're interested in leasing a Kia Niro or an e-Niro, follow the link to Lease Loco that's in the video description and pinned as the top comment. That will take you directly to a page on the Niro on Lease Loco, which will be updated in real time. So whenever you watch this video, you'll see the current best deals available on the Niro and the e-Niro. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell. Thanks ever so much for watching. I'll see you next time.